Welcome to Making Space For, the podcast where we embark on a journey to simplify, organize, and prioritize our lives. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and each episode will explore the art of intentional living, helping you make room for what truly matters. In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, it's easy to find ourselves surrounded by things that don't contribute to our happiness or well-being. Making Space For is your guide to decluttering not just your physical space, but also your mind and soul. We'll dive into practical tips on downsizing, right-sizing, and the transformative power of letting go. Whether you're starting a cluttered closet, pondering legacy planning, or seeking the elusive balance between work and self-care, this podcast is your sanctuary for inspiration and actionable insights. Join us as we feature experts, share personal stories, and explore the profound impact of intentional living. Together, we'll navigate the journey towards a simpler, more fulfilling life. One where you have more of what matters and less of what doesn't. So are you ready to make space for the life you've always wanted? Let's dive in. This is Making Space For. Well, before we dive into today's episode, a quick shout out to our flagship company, A Move Handled with Care. As Denver Metro's premier senior and specialty move management expert since 2007, we've mastered the art of downsizing, right-sizing, organizing, and every step in between. From packing and moving to unpacking and staging, our experienced staff represent all stages of life, offering a compassionate touch to what matters most to you. So, if you're looking to make a seamless transition while keeping what truly matters in focus, trust A Move Handled with Care. Visit us at amovehandledwithcare.com or on Facebook or LinkedIn to discover the difference. Let's continue making space for the life you deserve. Welcome to the Making Space For podcast. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and this episode is especially meaningful for Cierra and myself as we sit down with Gail Whitman, one of the original founders of A Move Handled with Care. Gail's impressive career in speech-language pathology and early childhood special education reflects the heart and the care that inspired this company's beginnings. Together, we dive into the past, present, and future of A Move Handled with Care, exploring the roots of our mission and how Gail's vision continues to guide us. Join us for this heartfelt conversation about legacy, growth, and what's next for our company. This is Making Space For Our Roots. Well, today is a special day, and we have one of the founders of A Move Handled with Care here to join us, Gail Whitman. And so we'll just jump right in. Gail, we just love to hear kind of a little bit about our history, but I'll let Cierra pop in and we'll get started.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paige. I'm super excited about this episode because it really highlights our company and not just where Paige and I have taken it, but where it was truly founded. And so thank you, Gail, for being a part of this today. And so let's just kind of start out and tell us a little bit about yourself and what's the story behind the company and, why was it started and what kind of problems were you trying to solve when you and Sharon, who is also the other co-founder, started this company?
Sure. Sharon and I had worked together for 25 plus years, and we were nearing retirement. And so it was like, okay, what do we do next? And she has always wanted to start a business and be a business owner, and I still had one more year to go. So she was out there looking around for something. And we both talked about, okay, if we do something, what is important to us? And so we wanted to do something that helped people and that we didn't need to learn a lot of new skills. It's like we didn't want to have to go back to school, but thought, let's bring what we know. So she actually, her aunt sent her a package. She found it on the front steps and opened it, and it was a figurine. And her aunt was dispersing all of her goods. She was elderly and was sending it around the country to cousins and nieces and nephews. And Sharon sort of thought, how does somebody do that, especially if you're old? So she did some research and found NASM. And it sort of said, oh, that's how. And we went to the conference and said, yeah, this resonates. We could do this. And so that's how we started, pretty much that way.
Yeah. I love how I think you guys, and we'll probably get a little bit into this, but I love how your backgrounds is really what brought you to this, and you both being social workers in that background.
Right.
Because so much transition, I think that you guys probably experienced at that first conference was just that. Like, this is what we've been doing almost our whole career. It's just in a different realm
Exactly.
of doing things.
Exactly.
And so then once you guys, and I know NASM was a big part, and I know when you guys first did join NASM, it was, back in the OG days
Yes.
where there was
Yeah.
probably 10 people in the room, maybe 20.
Exactly. Um, and
But how did that really help, shape your business, and how did that really help you guys kind of jumpstart it?
well, I think it gave us something to belong to and realize that there was something out there that we could be a part of. And um, that we could find a place of like-minded people. And I think for Sharon and I, it was more the mechanics of what and how to do something a little bit differently than we had been forever. So we worked with people who are in emotional distress, because we were working with children with learning disabilities. And we needed to help families through that process and to help them find solutions. So it was, we just felt like we had to change our paperwork a little bit from, that into seniors with later life moves. What was the goal? How are we going to do it? What are the steps? What was our plan for them to follow through? So that was what resonated with us. It was like, oh, we already know how to do this part. It's just a matter of the mechanics. So that's what started us along that line of this was a good match for us, given the population, people that we could help, which is what our main goal was. How do we continue to help people even after we are retired? And how can we bring our skills to bear after 30 some years of doing this work to just another arena?
So I had a question, kind of follow up, Gail, on the NASM. So for those who aren't familiar with it, it stands for the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, and so it's the board or the group and organization that we belong to. And a Move Handled with Care. I don't know if you heard this year, but we just got our A+ accreditation this last year. So we're at the highest accreditation that you can have, and it's really the checks and balances of who we are and the services that we provide. The board of ethics, things like that, and so when Cierra mentioned that when you went, it was kind of, back in the day where there weren't as many doing it. And you mentioned that you went there. Sounds like I'm trying to put the timing together. Did you go before you started your business, or had you started your business and then went, was that something that helped you kind of understand the nuts and bolts and be able to put it together? Or had you kind of gotten started? What did that timeline look like?
Yeah, they were both sort of happening at once. NASM, I think it was spring in New Orleans, and we were like, oh yeah, let's go. And then we learned like tips and things to follow up with or confirm what we already thought we were doing in terms of how to set something up. And so they kind of jived at the same time. So it was sort of a helpful thing. We just learned a little bit about boxes and packing and how to pack. And so that was the things that we felt we didn't have a handle on, but figured out where to go to get some tips and things. So
Perfect.
we did that and we practiced. We went to our friends and we packed their kitchens and we timed ourselves and, packed boxes and figured out what size we needed. And so then that got us up and running. And, from there, we sort of decided how to market and what we wanted to do.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember one of the first times I came to observe a job. I think I was with Sharon, and she's pulling boxes out of her car, and she's like, "This is a 4-5, and this is a 3-5, and this is a 3, and this is a 1-5," and I'm like, "What does this mean?" And it's
Sure.
funny how now, looking forward, I understand the box lingo. And I know you guys are very heavy using boxes. And when I bought the company, we kind of transitioned a little more into totes, but we definitely
Yeah.
still use that.
Yeah.
And so it's funny how you learn those kind of tips. But,
Yes.
I think, while I think our operations are still very similar to when you guys first started the company, I think probably what's changed the most is maybe our administrative and kind of our systems, which is more of a back end thing. But tell us a little bit about how, how did you do this when you guys first started this? Like what was your daily operations and what was your partnership agreement like, and how did you guys kind of handle that and tackle those day to days?
Sure. And I want to congratulate you on what you've achieved, because that's exactly what we were hoping and knew that you could do. So that feels good to us.
Thank
In
you.
the When we started, Sharon and I had worked together for so many years, almost 30, and we worked well. We never had any differences of opinion, and the same thing happened when we were developing the Move company. It was just like, of course we do it that way. So we never really had to spend any time on that, and we made a very simple agreement, legal agreement. But how we performed and did things was in sync, and I think that's really important for people if they're planning to work with somebody else. We had no disagreements or changes, so we just started as I said previously, saying, okay, we're going to need to, have a plan and meet with the clients. And we did. We met in their homes and we presented ourselves and listened. I think that was really important to what their needs were and what was important to them. And if they had family members, that could be a part of it, they were a part of it. And I think we really tried to make sure that this later life move for them was making their new home their new home. And I think that's what surprised the people the most after we had done the move, set up the new place. They would walk in and say, "Oh, it's my home. It's still my place. You brought this." So I think we really listened to what was important to them. She and I then made a plan, figured out what we could take, how much we could take, how to set up the apartment or whatever, or whatever they were moving into. Most of them were going into assisted or community living, and that it still looked like their place. We brought their favorite items. We helped them select and gently help them see, the turkey roaster wasn't going to be something they needed. What could they do instead? And just sort of get from point A to point B, and try to have it all moved, all set up so that they could go down to dinner that night. So our operation was the planning ahead of time. How much help did we need? How many boxes? How quickly could we get it? What time do we want the movers there? And we did it all in a day. So we packed the day before, and then or most of it, so that we left them obviously their bedroom and their TV and whatever, and then just packed the last essentials while the men were taking it out to the truck. And then we were done before noon and could get them all set up after. And if they had a family member, we had them take them out to lunch, and then come back when it was all set up. So we tried to arrange it that way.
Yeah. No, I think, and like I said, I think our process now, something that we have continued on so much that you guys founded was that heart and that
Yes.
being that helpful hand to your clients. And like I said, I think really what's mostly changed, because I remember when I first met you guys, you would take you had one cell phone, and or you had a number, and so you would pass the number to Sharon, and then Sharon would pass the number to you, and you were like, okay, I have 4 clients. That's all I can take. Okay, now Sharon, it's your turn to answer the phones, and you take the
Right.
next 4 clients, and you
Mhm.
kind of pass back and forth. And so we have, like I said, our systems have evolved a lot, but I think our foundation in which you
Yes.
guys really
Yes.
founded the company on has stayed very much the same.
Yes, and the intake, is important because that's when you first meet the client or the family, and you want to make it welcoming and let them know that they're taken care of. And, I think I mentioned this to you another time, but I think our backgrounds really helped us because for us, it was the emotional component first and making people feel taken care of and secure and happy or whatever, as much as you can be when you have to move. And a lot of people were starting the same business because it was new and everybody was like, oh yeah, we could do this. A lot of them came from a business model and they just missed the whole emotional heart part, and it just didn't last. They were into the business, here's how we're going to do it, and I think they lost the client along the way. So I can't stress that um, as as it's essential. And that was one of the reasons why we looked to you, and we can talk about that later. That was so important for us to find somebody that had that same feeling and that same interest in the client that we had.
Mm-hmm.
That lends itself, Gail, a little bit. And, I don't know if it was an easy thing, but people ask us all the time where our name came from.
Oh,
So how did you pick the name A Move Handled with Care? It feels to me very obvious, but I didn't know, what did that discussion look like and where did that name come from?
well, it was like, okay, how exactly? It's like, how do we say what we're doing? How do we get people to notice? What will our logo be? How do we And so Sharon's son was like, okay, mom, you got to have a letter A because it's good. You're going to be first listed and people will see that. So it's like, okay, what do we
We
do with
appreciate
A?
that, by the way. That is actually something we very much appreciate is that
I
we are
know.
alphabetically on the top.
Exactly. And that's what he said. And we were going like, okay. And then we didn't know what else to say. I mean, the caring part was important. So we just said what we thought. I personally thought, okay, well, now that's not very zippy and cute, but it says everything we wanted to say. And
Absolutely.
so if people remember for some reason they do, and maybe it's the heart in the box or whatever, but it's just like these people, care. So that's how that was.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's funny because we do our emails and I'm always like, hey, it's a long one.
Yeah.
Hold with me here. But it does. It says exactly what we do because we
Right.
always
Right.
we look at different names and we're like, kind of sounds like you're in a different industry. But I
Right.
think you guys did a great job
Well, thanks.
picking
And I
that for
kept
sure.
wondering if you were going to change it, come up with something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We did think about it at kind of one point saying, well, could we shorten it or could we do this or could we
yeah.
do that? And it never made sense. And,
Oh,
you know,
well, good. I guess we
yeah.
just fell into it. So there you
And we
have it.
have we have that discussion a lot with other people, when we go back to NASM and you hear all the different companies and
Right.
all the different things and Cierra and I always come away going, but we say exactly what we do. So you
Exactly.
don't have to
Exactly.
wonder, it doesn't have,
Right.
it's exactly that. So we like it.
Right.
And I will say the box and the heart we use on almost everything now. It's logoed that way. And
Good.
yeah, so we appreciate your I guess Sharon's son's foresight in the the alphabetizing of the name for sure.
Yeah, it did. It helped us. So
Yeah. So
glad it
kind of
works for you.
moving into that next step, I mean, at what point, what you guys had this company, it'd been very successful. I know you started it in 2008, which was right when we hit that big kind
Yes.
of financial crash, which was huge. And it kind of proved itself to be recession proof a little bit in the sense that you
Mhm.
guys were making a way for yourself. And then it grew and it grew. And then you guys kind of tell me a little bit about at what point did you both kind of look at each other and go, I think we're done, or I think we need to move on to like maybe actually retire now.
Yeah.
So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that transition.
Sure. Sharon and I retired early, I think, for what most people, we were able to retire at 55 because of our jobs. And it was like, oh, we can't just stop now. And that's where, the company came. And then after like 5, 8 years, we were like, okay, looking at each other. And I think we knew the company needed to make a change to the next level. It was ready to grow, it was ready to move on and up. And we were done. We were getting, we were in our 60s, and it was like, and, because we'd already done the starting of companies and things through our previous work. And it's like, okay. And that's kind of how it went. We felt like we were at the point where it needed something else that we weren't in the position to bring to it. So having built up a big legacy from before, and it just was, this company needs that, and that's not where she nor I were at the time, and we were finished.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys, in this process, I'm sure that you went through the emotions of, well, do we sell? Do we not? Do we just close our doors and say we had a good run at it? Do we sell to a moving company? I mean, I would imagine a lot of those conversations
Yeah.
came up because there's so many different avenues in which it could go in. Did you guys ever have reserves in that process? Was it
No,
just, yeah,
it
you
was,
understand my
it
question?
was, like sometimes when you have a baby, it's like, oh, now what? But it was sort of, we could see that it needed to go somewhere. And I think um, it was a business, an area of what people needed and wanted. And so we were like, okay, now what do we do? So it was, to whom do we trust this? And I think, I just want to keep stressing that we knew we needed somebody in there who was smart and young and able to take it forward, because we were just at that step and we were like, it's not me. And Sherry was like, it's not me. So, we talked a bit to movers because they really wanted to pick it up. So they approached us and we were like, nope. They just they weren't coming from the same perspective. They were just going to pack boxes and put them on the truck and, get that part of the income from that part of the business. And we were like, no, 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 it's so much more. And so we were really not interested in them. And there were, some people that approached us who'd never done anything like this before. And we were like, yeah, I don't think so. And Sharon had a friend who had a daughter who was working in a senior community. And Sharon knew her and said, we might want to talk to Cierra. And so it was, we really felt like we wanted somebody that got seniors, and what was important to them and how you worked with them. And so that was really where it went. And Sierra, we met you, and it was like, yeah. And so knew that you could do and carry forward what we were hoping for the company. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how we landed. I'm sure we would have kept looking had you decided it wasn't what you were interested in. But I think when we decided to look into the arena of persons already working in the senior community, we knew we were on the right track for getting
Mm-hmm.
someone that got what needed to be done and how to work with families and what their fears and concerns were with their family member moving and the family member themselves. It wasn't boxes on a truck. So there was that whole other part that is a part of the process of a later life move that needs to be addressed. And that was our priority. The boxes were the boxes and the guys could move the boxes, but it was taking care of someone's lifelong dreams and possessions, that in a
Right.
respectful way.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, kind of to go back to the beginning where you talked about how your social work really brought was, that's why this company was so successful and why so many
Mhm.
others didn't make it in that time.
Exactly.
Um, and I would agree because coming out of senior living and meeting Paige, who also came out of senior living, there was so much background that helped because we were on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of jumping over the rainbow to the other side. And I remember, um, this is my favorite part of the story. Everyone said, oh, because I was kind of like Sharon, I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was actually first thought I'd be a nonprofit and working with orphans and
Uh,
going to Africa and
sure.
this thing. And then all of a sudden this kind of landed in my lap. And I was newly married, or not newly married. I'd been married for a while. We had a couple kids, or we had one child at the time. And I remember you guys approaching me and saying, "Hey, we've got this business." And we kind of thought about it. And I came home and I told my husband, I was like, "I think I want to do this. I want to find this money." And,
Sure.
and then I think, gosh, maybe like a month or so later, I was like, "Oh, and I'm pregnant." Okay. So we're going to buy a business and have a baby. And it's kind of, now it's almost funny because my husband and my husband bought his company too. And I was pregnant with our third child at the time. And so it's like, well, we can't just do one at a time. We always have to do two at a time. And, but I think it did, the transition in which really fell into place, which is my favorite part of the story, is how I think your background and your compassion really showed through in our sales and in our transition, because, we came to the table, we came up with an agreement, and it was just amazing how I was able to come in, buy part of the business, learn from you guys, work with you, learn all about it. I remember Sharon emailing me like the financials on a spreadsheet, because she kept everything on a spreadsheet, and the contact list and things like that. But then I was able to have my second daughter and take maternity leave, and then come back, and then kind of finish out that sale. And so it just, yeah, I'm very honored that you guys did approach me in that manner. And I think the way that you set it up has really set Paige and I up for such success. I mean, we've taken the company, I think, above what I even ever imagined we would.
Right. You did great.
And I think much so to Paige's credit too. I mean, I had visions, and then when Paige came in, the visions just got bigger, which was great. And I think you can agree, when I first purchased it, I thought, I don't want a partner that, I'll just do it by myself. But then bringing in a partner, I'm like, oh man, this is what Sharon and Gail were talking about. And, why you need somebody else in this, just not only to run that day to day, but just be that sounding voice for you.
Yes,
and I'm sure you found that so much with Sharon.
Especially if you partner that is simpatico with you. Sharon and I, just like I said, we just, oh yeah, okay. Oh, we just never had any issues. And it just made the whole process go. And I think the same thing when you were involved, or we wanted you to be, it was the heart we were looking for, and someone with a sense of values and commitment that we felt for the company was the most important thing for us to find, and someone that had that as the primary impetus for the business. I mean, the other parts to me are just the ancillary parts. But you got to have seniors that are happy. That makes the move-in coordinators happy. If their people are happy, it all just goes together. And so that was important. We needed somebody that understood that and knew how to make that happen. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Well, I think we'll kind of wrap up here a little bit. And I've got one last question for you, is that, obviously your transition from selling this business, and the theme of our podcast is making space for. And so obviously in starting this company, you made space in the move management world for, Paige and I to continue on. And but tell me a little bit about what have you been doing since selling the business, and what have you made space for in your life?
Yes, and I'll speak for Sharon too a little bit. I mean, we were both ready to move on, and she's done a lot of traveling. She and her husband are always on the go, and I have grandchildren now, which are near and dear to my heart, and I am lucky enough to have them nearby. So I get to travel also, and I get to spend as much time or as little time with them as I want. I've taken on some volunteer. Um, jobs, if you will, that I really enjoy and like, ones at the art center, so just a variety of things that, you've always wanted to do and never felt you had the time for. That's what I think we both feel like we can do now, because we did the business thing, we made it grow, we enjoyed it, loved it, and now we're just spending time on us, which is kind of nice. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And I remember your husband spent a lot of time at the curling rink.
Oh,
Is he
yeah.
still doing that? And do you
Go
go
ahead.
watch him?
Yes, I do. And, he started curling up in Leadville where we have a mountain place. So we go up there a lot. And so there's curling up there. So it's a part of our life too. I could go whenever I want. And he's curled overseas and just done a lot of things. And I could say that I go with him if I want and have. So yeah, it's the time to do the things that you're able to that you want to do with your family and your friends that we were ready for after doing this business. So there's
That's
space,
great.
there's room for
There
it.
is. There is. Yeah. Well, Paige, do you have anything else to add
I
or
guess if
any
I
other?
had one thing, I'd love to know, because people ask us all the time, like, where did we come up with this idea? And we always have to, admit, like, this wasn't our idea, and this wasn't something we started, but it's a legacy that has continued on. And so, I guess if you had to have one piece of advice or a wish that you wish that a move handled with care would be or turn into in the next 5-10 years, what might that be?
I think, our wish, both Sharon and mine, speaking for me, is that it would be taken over by somebody who cared and who could make it bigger and better. And I think that you guys have done that. That's exactly what I'd hoped for. And, Sharon and I did everything. We answered the phone, we counted the boxes, we got the boxes, we packed all the boxes, we unloaded all the boxes. And you've brought it to the business level, and so I'm proud of that for you because I think it really is. It's a company to be proud of, and it's accomplished, and it serves people. So that's everything that I could have hoped for, and you did it. Good on you. That's kind of what
Thank you very
I'm
much.
happy. I'm
Thank you.
happy about it.
We
It
appreciate
would have
that.
taken a nosedive. I was like, oh man, that didn't work out. But you did everything that we would have wanted to if we weren't, two old ladies now with watching our backs and how much energy we have. Yeah, it was a wonderful ride for us. And it's even going bigger and better. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for entrusting me and even entrusting Paige in this as well as she's come on, because it really, like I said, you guys just really took this company and started it and really did set us up for success when, we took it over. And I remember having many conversations about that as like, will this be successful? And of
Yeah,
course you want it to be, but
right.
you guys really did set an amazing foundation that we're able, like Paige said, to take that legacy and continue on.
Okay.
And hopefully, we don't really know what our plan is as far as 5, 10, 15 years down the road. But, I think maybe when we start to get to that point,
Yeah,
then we'll have
you figure it
a
out.
good same story or
Yep,
something
you will.
similar.
You'll know exactly what to do because it'll present itself. And as I said, Sharon and I knew it needed somebody to take it further than we could. And you did, and you will, and you'll decide when the time is for something different. So thank you for the
Yeah.
success you brought to our name.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us. I think this is going to be great for our listeners to hear kind of the story because people ask us all the time where it came from. And so
Sure.
we're glad to be able to share that. So thanks so much for your time today.
Absolutely.
That wraps up another inspiring episode of the Making Space for podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guest and to you, our cherished listeners. Your journey to intentional living begins with each small step, and we're honored to be a part of it. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider liking, subscribing, and rating our podcast on your favorite platform. Before we part ways, a friendly reminder, if you're embarking on a move or seeking expert guidance in downsizing, remember a move handled with care in Denver. With over 15 years of experience in senior and specialty move management, we're here to transform your transition into a seamless, stress-free experience. Visit amovehandledwithcare.com for more information, and let's continue making space for the life you've always wanted. Until next time, stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep making space for what matters most.